continue to be one of the best offenses in all the NFL, no matter who's pulling the strings as the offensive coordinator.
It's been mentioned here about the departures of Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator who became the head coach of the Chicago Bears, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator who became the head coach of the New York Jets. But it's not just those two particular individuals who left the Lions organization in the offseason. The Lions lost 8 coaches altogether, including both their coordinators. The center of their offense, Frank Ragnow, retired. And even though this team has been as good as any in football the last couple of years, those are noticeable holes that they have to overcome. That means leaning on Jared Goff some for leadership. That means leaning into some of these other players and coaches. We're not going to get an idea of that tonight. That's not what tonight is about. Tonight is about the Lions taking an extended look at Kyle Allen at quarterback and Hendon Hooker at quarterback to see what they have in some of these young players. We're trying to secure backup spots and roster jobs. But this is a team that, for as good as it's been, still has some questions that it has to answer this season.
All right, a lot to get to with all that. And let's get to our top stories with Adam. We're putting you right back to work here, Adam. What's the latest on Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals?
Laura, he's back at camp right now, but there's been a difference on guaranteed money. Now, again, the two sides are near agreement on the length of the deal, what the value of the deal should be, but they've been unable to bridge their differences on guaranteed money. And until there's some headway made there, they're going to remain at odds. Trey Hendrickson has said that he's not going to play on this contract that is scheduled to pay him $16 million. We'll see what unfolds here. Similarly, in Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons right now are nowhere. They seem to be further away from a deal now in late July than they were in late March. The two sides have not spoken in recent weeks or even months. The Cowboys open the season 5 weeks from tonight. And it sounds like Micah Parsons may have some significant decisions to make about how he wants to handle his future. Meanwhile, in that division, Terry McLaurin also doesn't have a deal, not close to a deal. The two sides disagree on what would be fair value for Terry McLaurin. So he's back in the organization, but he's still not practicing. He's on the physically unable to perform list. He is entering the last year of his contract in an exploding wide receiver market. And so we now have Washington and McLaurin, Dallas and Parsons, Cincinnati and Hendrickson today. And these things can change fast, Laura, but today, nobody is close to a deal.
Yeah, man, it's just fascinating. There's a lot of here, too, of like, I'm just here so I don't get fined, right? McLaurin, by the way, had instant chemistry with Jayden Daniels during his rookie season, and he had significantly better numbers throwing to his top target than all other wide receivers combined. Look at these numbers. Daniels had 12 touchdowns to McLaurin, the third most for any combo in the league in 2024, behind Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those connections are well documented. Here's Jayden Daniels today on his new weapon, Deebo Samuel.
I'll just say for Deebo, I mean, the guy played a lot of football, and he's very understanding of different coverages and routes, and, you know, the guy is a pro, so, and he works hard. So for me, it's like I just go out there and try to communicate this is what I want versus this look versus this coverage, and he go out there and he puts in the work and he understands it.
Now, Jayden's also talked about McLaurin and said they've been in communication and all these things, if you're wondering. But, RC, if Jayden is without McLaurin at all to start this season, how does this Cliff Kingsbury offense look with Deebo now part of it?
Listen, Deebo Samuel doesn't do what Terry McLaurin does. Deebo Samuel was going to be the perfect complement to what Terry McLaurin does. Deebo Samuel can be used as a Swiss Army knife, play in the slot, play the X receiver, play the Z, get in motion and give you some of the short routes with the yards after the catch. We know how difficult he is to get on the ground with the football in his hands, and it's going to be on Cliff Kingsbury to find ways to get Deebo the football where he can make plays, have one-on-one opportunities in the open field. But make no mistake about it, Deebo Samuel is not a replacement for Terry McLaurin. These players couldn't be more polar opposites in the way that you need to utilize them offensively. Having Terry McLaurin in this building is paramount for Jayden Daniels and paramount for this offense to be able to create explosive plays. And then Deebo Samuel becomes the recipient of some of those two-eye coverages, those coverages that are soft, because now he can catch the ball, work one-on-one with safeties and linebackers, and show just how good he was in San Francisco in that Kyle Shanahan offense.
Yeah, RC, to me, the other problem that Deebo Samuel really solves is when you go back a year ago, maybe the only issue you had with Jayden Daniels was he was sacked 47 times, which was the 6th most amount. So they went out, they traded for Laramie Tunsil, drafted Josh Connolly, when healthy. Sam Cosby presumably will go inside. But Deebo Samuel, as you mentioned, he's so hard to tackle. He averages 9 yards after catch in terms of production. So to me, those long handoffs get the ball out of Jayden Daniels' hands. So I think Deebo Samuel kills 2 birds with 1 stone relative to helping keep Jayden Daniels healthy and getting sacked less.
But it still comes back to Terry McLaurin, right? They're going to need him in this offense. He was the deep ball threat. He was the go-to guy. He was the guy that made play after play last season. The amount of tough catches that he made rivaled any receiver in the National Football League. He was the player that Jayden Daniels counted on, really a security blanket like Zach Ertz. And again, the season here is just over 5 weeks away from getting here, and the two sides have not made a lot of progress towards a new deal. And you wonder what it would take, because who would think that Terry McLaurin wouldn't have a deal done on July 31st? We know what he means to Washington. They know what he means to their offense. And yet here they are, still struggling to find common ground and a compromise that would enable this deal to get done.
They just showed you that list of who is in this wide receiver room. And if you don't have Terry McLaurin, you don't have a top-end deep ball guy. You don't have a person that you feel is going to go outside and win in one-on-ones. And though Terry McLaurin may not be all of these other people we've compared him to when it comes to contract negotiations, he is their number one. He is their most important wide receiver, their most explosive player on the outside. And they have to find a way to have him in camp and have him on the football field game 1 this year for Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, it's unthinkable to me that he wouldn't be having this figured out by the start of the season, but I will point this out. Only one of the Commanders' first 4 games is against a team that made the playoffs last season, week 2 at the Packers. So maybe if he's not out there early on, they can still get by, but he's kind of. All right, let's talk Vikings. J.J. McCarthy taking over the reins as the starting quarterback with a decent amount of pressure, but also a really good supporting cast and excellent coaching staff to see him out there at training camp. As part of SportsCenter's 50 States in 50 Days, Elle Duncan was in Minnesota yesterday, caught up with J.J. McCarthy.
Have you at any point had your, oh my goodness, I am the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings moment yet?
No, I really haven't. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, it just matters about, taking that responsibility, and, the coaches and the players put so much trust in me, and just making sure I do my job on a daily basis to, help this team succeed in any way I can.
All right, you know this by now. There's a lot of cliches that are thrown around when it comes to football. One of them is building trust with your receivers. But JJ, what does that actually look like, apart from just learning the kind of routes that they want?
It's building the trust on the field, but most importantly off the field. Developing those relationships, those intimate relationships that, lead to success on the field. And, just getting with them after practice, playing games with them, and, just sitting with them at lunch. All the little things where you could just bond and grow off the field.
Certainly sounds promising early this offseason for J.J. Minnesota, but there are still some questions surrounding his top 2